didn't quite know how. It was late summer in 1995, and the call fields had just cleared a hurdle most major label baby bands never even reach in the first place. The lead single off of Whirligig, our debut album for A&M Records, had the label smelling money. Hit record money. And another platinum victory, just like the ones they had orchestrated for Gin Blossoms and Blues Traveler and Sheryl Crow in recent fiscal quarters. We could be next, right? Devil's Diary had cracked the modern rock top 40, gaining initial momentum on WDRE and Y100 in Philadelphia, eventually hitting #1 for a week in Niagara Falls, generating great phones in Grand Rapids, testing with 18 to 34-year-olds in Milwaukee and Madison, and catching fire down south in Atlanta, appealing to post-grunge kids with a chorus hook that was equal parts irony and blasphemy. I'm bigger than Jesus now. The song also appeared to be generating a little backlash in certain conservative quarters, or so we thought, about 40 minutes before we were due on stage at a small club in Slidell, Louisiana. It was a fill-in date on the night before a huge radio festival in New Orleans, which was just a little less than an hour away, driving on I-10 around Lake Pontchartrain. While most of the band was digging into our meat platter, provided in the office, doubling as our dressing room, I was trying to rest my eyes and save my vocal cords. My voice was in nightly danger of crapping out from a touring schedule that regularly included sleepless 15-hour drives originating somewhere near the Canadian border for seemingly every show we played in the southern half of the country. The venue booker knocked on the door and let himself in, saying something like, hey y'all, David Duke is here, and he'd like to talk to you. While the others probably didn't hear this over the sound of their own ravenous chewing, I immediately snapped to attention, as did our manager, Duran Siegel. Leave it to the half-Asian and the Jew in the room to know all about former Grand Wizard of the KKK. The David Duke, we asked simultaneously, in the weirdest jinx you owe me a soda moment of our lives. Only one that I know, the booker laughed. Within seconds, the entire band was fully engulfed in panic, as was our tour manager, Tony, who was already dressed in the Elvis jumpsuit that just happened to be hung up in the corner of the room, waiting for him like an open invitation. I could feel my pulse racing toward tachycardia. And before we even had time to climb out the nearest window, in walked David Duke, all smiles. I'm sorry to barge in on you, he said, before turning toward Duran. You must be the manager. While no one in the room would ever be mistaken for Brian Epstein or Peter Grant, I suppose Duran looked the most managerial, with a healthy collection of laminated backstage passes connected to a black lanyard around his neck. David Duke leaned in toward him with a toothy grin. How's business? He asked, with the subtlest tone of anti-Semitic glee. I can't stay for the show, but my daughter's a big fan, and I was hoping to get the band's autographs for her. He offered each one of us a handshake, in the manner of the slick politician he'd become by then. His forced grin turned to mild confusion when he came around to shaking my hand. I can only speculate as to why. I'd like to say I told him where to shove it, on behalf of all the minorities over whom he had claimed superiority, but I was completely taken aback. We all were. I was a walking example of the race mixing that was still illegal in his home state the year I was born. And I was pretty sure David Duke would have wanted to keep it that way. I wanted to speak up, but I didn't quite know how. Duran shuffled Tony toward the merch tub to grab some Sharpies. Before we knew it, our signatures were drying on a copy of Whirligig, which, who knows, may to this day be sitting in a dusty shoebox of teenage memorabilia on a closet shelf belonging to David Duke's daughter.